We're going to begin this video by opening up our file, and the name of the file is called Chapter 4 Practice. Chapter 4 Practice. We want to click on the sheet by the name Warehouse Payment Table. So we're going to begin working on that sheet. Now during this video, we're going to look at the PMT function. We're also going to look at two variable data tables that are using the PMT function, or it's based on the PMT function. We'll be looking at named ranges, data validation, and then the VLOOKUP function. Now what we're going to start off at is by looking at the PMT function. The PMT function. The purpose of the PMT function is to determine your payment for a loan that you took out. How much you're going to pay back for some loan that you took out. Now usually you're going to be paying back on that loan on a monthly basis, but it doesn't have to be. You could also be paying back the loan on a quarterly basis, or even making payments back once a year. But as a rule, you're going to borrow some money and you're going to pay it back on a monthly basis. Now when you're looking at the PMT function, there's three variables involved. Starting off at the amount of the loan, how much you're borrowing. Second variable is the total payments that you're going to have to make on that loan. In this case, we have 120 total payments. But how that was comprised is that we took 10 years, 12 months in a year, 10 times 12, there would be 120 payments that we would have to make for a 10-year loan. So the second variable has to do with the total payments that you're going to be making back on that loan. Lastly, there's the interest rate, how much you're going to be paying back to the bank for the use of borrowing that money. So it's the amount of money that you're going to pay back the bank. Keeping in mind that for that interest rate, as a rule, you need to amortize it. Because you're going to be making usually monthly payments, what you need to do is take that interest rate and divide it by 12 if you're making monthly payments. So there's three variables: size of the loan, total payments, which is usually years multiplied by 12. It's already been done for us here. Lastly, the interest rate. And as a rule, we need to divide that by 12. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by going into cell B8. And in B8, we're going to place our PMT function. So we're in cell B8. Click on FX for our function. The name of the function that we're looking at is PMT. It's highlighted. Click OK. Line number 1 has to do with our interest rate. And that interest rate, it's even telling us here, needs to be amortized. Divided by 12 if there's 12 months. If there's only 4 payments or quarterly payments, it would be the interest rate divided by 4. So we're going to start off with our interest rate. We're going to click on our interest rate, which is to 5.5, divided by 12, because we're going to be making monthly payments. Line number 2, the NPER, it's the total number of payments. Because that's already been determined, right here, 120 total payments. If it had been 10 years, it would be 10 multiplied by 12. 12 months in a year, 10 years, 10 times 12, 120. But it's already been determined. So it's B3. Line 3 is the number of the loan or pertaining to the loan. What is the size of that loan? And we want that information to show as a positive number. So the size of our loan is up here in B2, but before I click on it, I need to insert a negative sign. I want it to show up as a positive number. And how I do that is by putting in my negative sign. Click on cell B2, which is the size of that loan. Click OK. And our answer is 11,123.94. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that value in cell B8, and I want it to stand out, because once again, it's showing my PMT. I'm going to come up here to the paint bucket, click on it, so now it's yellow. So it's going to stand out. This is a function showing me right up here. I'm using the PMT function. I'm taking my interest rate, B4, divided by 12. B3 is the total payments. And lastly, B2, or negative B2, is the size of the loan. Next, what I'm going to do is we're going to use a two-variable data table to determine what our payments would be in this area right here. But it's two variable, okay? Once again, the area in yellow, we've already determined the PMT based upon this information up here. But what I want to do next is I want to determine the PMT for two variables. And the variables are in the rows going across based upon the number of payments, and also various interest rates. And these are represented in the column area. So we have the interest rates, variable 2, and variable 1 in the rows going across are the number of payments. The steps for our two variable data table is to highlight the area first, and the area includes two variables, the months, and also going down the columns, the interest rate. But it's also very important, as you can see, I've also highlighted the actual PMT function that I've already determined. Next, we come up to the Data tab, click on it, move over on the Data tab, and then click on What If Analysis. After clicking on What If Analysis, click on Data Table. And we're going to get a little box here. And it's saying, well, what's your row inputs? Well, my row inputs are right here. 60, 120. They all represent my row inputs, the actual period of months. So what I'm going to do is next click on B3. That's my period in months. The column inputs, line 2, those are my interest rates. And my interest rates are located right here in B4. So this information here was feeding the information to determine my first PMT. And what I'm trying to do now is to work off that information to get my row, which is the total payments, and interest. little confusing when you first look at it, but it kind of makes sense. B3, when you look at the initial formula, corresponds, or my rows corresponds to my months, and my interest rates are in B4. Click OK. Let's format the information here. We'll make it accounting format. And for one of the cells, we'll choose this one right here. We'll use it to show how to change our styles to a note style. So you got styles, hit the down arrow, come over here and click on note. Now the main thing here is that what this is showing now. So for instance, I could say, well, what would my payment be if I was taking out a loan for 6% at 180 months? And it's already been figured out for us because of that 2-variable data table. So we can look at all types of examples of what if. What if I took out a loan at 4%? And I was paying back that loan for 360 months. That's what I would have to be paying, $48.93. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of sorting. We're going to begin by clicking on the job information sheet. We're going to highlight this area here from A4 down to C11. So that area is now highlighted. Basically what we've done is we've highlighted a very small table. The key component of a table is the top row or the header row. But in database talk, that top row or header row is referred to the field names. Okay? So our field names for this table right here is job code, description, and salary. But any table is always made up of field names. Those field names allow us to sort that table and then also to select or filter the table. But we're going to start off by looking at sorting. So we've highlighted our table and we want to sort that table. So we highlight it first. Next off is we right click. After clicking on the table or right clicking, we're going to go down to sort. And I always recommend strongly that you move down to a custom sort. So we highlighted our table, right clicked, went down to sort, and now we're going to go to custom sort. Click on it, and by custom sorting, it gives us the ability to sort on different levels within the table. So we can do a multiple sort. We're not just stuck with sorting the table by only one field name. So we're going to come over here to sort by, come over to the drop down arrow, and what you're going to see are the various field names are all listed. So you can choose what field name you want to sort on. And we're going to choose job code. We're going to leave it the order A to Z, but we could also change it if needed to Z to A or a custom list. But we're going to leave it at A to Z. Click on OK. And what you can see is that your table has now been sorted. Next, what we're going to do is create a named range. Now the steps to creating a named range is to highlight the area that you're going to create the named range from. So we're going to highlight from A5 to A11. Come up here to the named box, right within here. And then type in what the name of that range is going to be. And the name of our range is going to be job code. Job underbar code. After typing in job underbar code, hit enter. Now to test and see if that worked, click outside. I'm going to click in this cell right here. And what I can do now is go back up to our named box, hit the down arrow. You can see that my named range has been created. Job code, click on it, and it's all highlighted. Next, we're going to use data validation to ensure that the information that we're putting into our table is spelled correctly. Okay, so we're going to use data validation, and we're going to go to the sheet, the staffing plan worksheet. Right here. We're going to highlight this area from A9 to A18. So this is where our data validation is going to be placed. We do that, so we've highlighted the area where we're going to have our data validation. Click on the Data tab, come over to the right, and we're going to click on Data Validation. Hit the down arrow, and then click on Data Validation. Now we can change our settings and input messages and error alerts, but we're going to just concentrate on the Settings tab. We're going to begin right now that this area here, right now it's going to allow any value, but we need to change that. And we change that by clicking on the down arrow, and we're going to select a list or table. Next, we're going to click in source. And what the source is looking for is, where is our list or table coming from? And what it's coming from is a named range that we just created. The named range that we just created is called job code. Easiest way of finding that out, or to find out what named ranges we've created, is that when we're in this source box, tap the function key F3. In F3, by hitting that, it will list our various named ranges. And the one that we just created is called job code. Click on it. Click OK. Now we could have also typed in equal job code. But if you have a whole bunch of named ranges, you want to make sure that you pick the right one, but also spell it correctly. So by clicking in here, tapping function key F3, all of your named ranges will now appear. Click OK. Our data validation has worked, and how we know that is that we now have a drop-down menu. And these are all the various selections that we can choose from. We're going to begin by choosing M-MG. Once again, we could have chosen any of the other selections, all from the job code named range that we created a couple of minutes ago. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the VLOOKUP function. Now, the purpose of the VLOOKUP function is to move information from one table to another table. The key component of the VLOOKUP function is something that's called the table array, the underlying table. So we're trying to move information basically from this table array over to some other table. So let's look at this table array first off. I want to click on the job information sheet. Okay? And I want to highlight this area from A5 all the way over to C11. So we're in the job information sheet, and we're highlighting this area from A5 all the way over to C11. That's our table array. The table array, when you look at the top here, all tables are made up of, the top row is always the field names. We've got 3 field names: job code, description, and salary. So we have our field names, and it's made up of 3 columns, okay? Column 1 has to do with the job codes. Column 2 has to do with the descriptions. And column 3 is our salary. And once again, now keep in mind here for our table array, we highlighted the table, but we did not, and once again, this only has to do with VLOOKUP, we did not highlight also the field names. But that table array is made up of 3 columns: job codes, descriptions, and salaries. Most important part of a VLOOKUP function is to know where that table array is located. So let's go back to our sheet, our staffing plan sheet. We're in cell B9. B9 is blank, and what we're trying to do is pull up from another table the description. What does M/MG mean? So based upon this job code, what is the description of that job code? And we're going to use VLOOKUP to do that. We're in cell B9. What we're going to do next is click on our f of x. We're going to type in VLOOKUP here if it's not already appearing. Type in VLOOKUP. Mine is already appearing. It's highlighted. Click OK. When you look at that VLOOKUP dialog box, you can see it's made up of 5 lines of data. Okay? Or 5 lines that we're going to have to fill out. The lookup value, our table array, the most important part of our formula. The column index number, which is some column within our table array. We're going to see that in a second. And lastly, our range lookup. Are we looking for an exact match or an inexact match? So we're going to start off in our first row, our lookup value. So what we're looking up is right here, M-MG, the value in AG. What does that mean? That's what we're looking up. So that's what we're trying to find. Next, we're going to go to line 2, which is our table array. Where is our table array located? So we need to fill that in. And we're going to fill it in by left-clicking on Job Information. That's the sheet that contains this table array. We're going to highlight that table array. So we highlighted it, keeping in mind that when we look at it, it's made up of 3 columns. Our job code, that's what we're trying to match on. Description is column 2. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're trying to determine. Description is in column 2. And then our salaries are in column 3. So we've highlighted our table array, and one of the most common mistakes that people make is that they forget to make that table array an absolute. You need to lock in that table array. And how you do that is by tapping function key 4. So what's happened now is that those values from A5 to C11, they are now locked in. They have a $ in front of them. So always make a note that after you highlight that table array, click F4 to lock it in. Next, column index number. That means, and what it means, while it's still showing here, the column index number, all that means is that within your table array, what column contains the information that you're looking for? In our case, here's our table array. We're looking to find description, which is column 2. So we're going to click here, and all we're going to do is type in 2. Lastly, our range lookup means do you want an exact match or an inexact match? In our case, we want an exact match, which we could either type in false, that means exact, or just put in a 0. Likewise, if you were looking for an inexact match, you would type in either a 1 or type in true. But for our case, we're looking for an exact match. Put in a 0. Click OK. So now you can see is that the VLOOKUP, based upon this M-MG, has gone to that table array, located here, MMMG, and the translation for it is within the table array, it's in column 2, and it's pulled it over. Very powerful. If you ever want to edit a function, the easiest way of doing it, so we're in this cell right here, B9. We got VLOOKUP here showing, but still, to really flesh out the guts of it, here, click on FX, and our box once again shows up. It shows us that our lookup value is here, A5. The table array is in the sheet called job information, in that range A5 to C11, which is an absolute. That's why you got the $ there. Our column index means that within our table array, column 2 contains the information that we're looking for. And lastly, we have our 0, which means we want an exact match. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go to B9, which we're already in, and we're going to copy that pattern. Go to the fill handle and copy it right down. Come up here to C9. We're going to type in a 1. And underneath management, or underneath type, we're going to type in management. Okay, once again, we're in a staffing plane worksheet. And we're up in cell E9. And what we're going to do is we're going to use VLOOKUP once again to determine our salaries. And those salaries are going to be based upon our table array, which is in this job information sheet. And we're going to be looking up our salaries based upon the M-MG code. Okay, so we're going to be using VLOOKUP. We're going to take information from our table array, which is in our job information sheet, and we're going to bring that information back to the sheet right here in cell E9. So let's see what we're talking about here. We're in cell E9, f of x, VLOOKUP. That's our function. Based upon the value here, the M-MG, that's our lookup value. We're going to look up things based upon that value. Click on line 2, and we're going to go to our table array, which is the key component of VLOOKUP. You have to have a table array that has to be identified. Where our table array is we're going to click on Job Information Sheet. We're going to highlight our table array. Once again, it's in that same area, A5 to C11. And when we look at that table array, it's made up of 3 columns. Column 1 contains our job codes. Column 2 contains our descriptions. And column 3 within that table array contains our salaries. Now we highlighted that table array. And what we always have to make sure we do is after identifying that table array, we need to make it an absolute. So tap F4, that makes it an absolute. We now have our $signs. Our column index number, once again, will refer to what column within your table array contains our salary. It's going to be 3. So we're going to click here. Within our column index number, we're going to put in 3, which is column 3 had our salaries within our table array. Line 4 is range lookup. We want an exact match, so we're going to put in a 0. Click OK. And our salary has now been brought up. I would make that into an accounting format. We can now go to our fill handle and drag that pattern down. This other one we actually dragged down too far. Next, we're going to choose another job code. So we're in cell A10. And for the next job code, we're going to go to our drop down and we're going to choose C/cash. The number of positions, we're going to enter 4. And the type, we're going to say cashier. And you can see, I spelled that incorrectly. And you can see that our VLOOKUP is working here and also here. Next, we're going to click on the revenue sheet, and we're going to do some error checking. So we're in the revenue sheet. We're going to click on cell I5, and what we want to do now is trace the precedence in that formula. So we're in I5. We're going to click on the Formulas tab. Next, we're going to click on Trace Precedence. We've done that. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to trace our precedence. I've just lost my screen, but that's okay. We're in the revenue sheet. We're going to click on I5, click on formulas, come over here to trace precedence. So once again, now we have our trace precedence showing again. We're going to do next some error checking, and how we go about doing that is, once again, we're within the formulas tab. We clicked on trace precedence. We're going to come over here to the right and click the down arrow, and then click on error checking. Our first error is showing. We need to edit that error. One way of doing it, we could quickly double left click and see what's happening here. And it is going to kind of show us that we have our second quarter beaded bracelets, which are in C5. It's multiplied by a rate of change of 1 plus, and it's looking at B14. But B14 would be for crystal bracelets. What we actually need is the beaded bracelets, and they should be not in cell B14, but they're in B15. So I'm going to highlight that 4, change it to 5. So we've made our change, and we're going to click on resume, which will bring us down to our next error. Our next error is in cell M6, showing us what our error is. Let's quickly double left click here, and it's showing once again that we're not looking at our total. Like, our total is not in cell L10. It's right up here in L9. So if I change that here to L9, or I could have made the change up here, we should be all set. Click on resume. We'll go to our next error right here. If I quickly double left click, you can see it's only adding from B7 to D7. It should be over. A couple of ways of changing that. I could edit that, or just go up above. I can see that's what my pattern really should be. So I'm here. That's the correct pattern. Go to the fill handle, drag it down. Quickly double left click. You can see where we're all set here. We've corrected it. Click on resume. Our next error, let's quickly double left click here. And it's showing once again that we have a rate of change of D8, the third quarter, for men's bracelets. It's picked up crystal bracelets instead, and we need to edit that. Men's bracelets, what it should be in is B18. So we're going to change that B14 to B18. Click on resume. We've corrected all of our errors. Click on OK. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to use the Format Painter. And the Format Painter is available in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. It allows us to copy a format, any type of a format. To get that Format Painter, click on the Home button or the Home tab. We want to change the formatting here. We want it to match up with the cell right above. So this is the correct formatting with our %, but we want to use that formatting painter. So within this cell here, we're going to copy that format, and how we go about doing that is by left clicking on the Format Painter. As we move it across, we can see we have that paintbrush, which is copying that pattern or copying that formatting. And we're going to click on the cell that we want to have reformatted. Click right here. You can see everything has been changed. And those are the main points for Chapter 4. Thank you.